Hi, welcome to Darkwood Brew, where ancient Christian mystical practice is blended with modern interactive web technology, world-class jazz, arts, biblical scholarship, and you never know exactly what's going to happen. I'm Eric Ellis, your host, and this Sunday and next I will be off into the wilds of Oregon, where I am now actually, visiting my in-laws, and then I'll be off to the Atlanta, Georgia at the Praxis 21 conference where I'll be speaking and hoping to meet a number of you there. This evening we continue our Hookers, Looters, and Cheats series. As we've been through the hookers, we've been through the looters, and now on to the cheats. Speaking of cheats, this evening will be hosted by the Reverend Chris Alexander, and she'll be joined by popular Skype guest Bruce Van Blair, who has some very interesting things to say about a curious story, which is our feature this evening, about Jesus' encounter with a Samaritan woman, at a well. What does this story have to say about Jesus? What does it have to say about the woman? And how about what it says about us and who we wish to become? A little warning to those of you who may have sensitive ears. You may want to find some cotton balls because the language might get a little bit explicit this evening. You never know with Bruce, and the story makes it even more possible. So if you're sensitive, get those cotton balls or cover your eyes, what have you. You never know what they've got in store as we explore this very curious story. But before we go any further, let's take a look at what happened last week. Zacchaeus climbed a tree to see Jesus because he couldn't see him because he was short. But the he there in the Greek, there's no immediate reference. You can't tell whether that's Zacchaeus or Jesus. So maybe it was Jesus was a short guy.
Could be.
And who knows? I'm not claiming that Jesus was the short one, but it's just interesting that we always automatically assume that somebody who's really important must be tall. And I kind of like that, actually. I think so.
You would.
By our definition, progressive simply means a willingness to examine the best scholarship that's out there, the best history, the best science, and reflect upon that when making a decision about what does it mean to be a Christian today. Take a careful look at this picture here. I've discovered something that nobody's ever noticed before. If you look at Zacchaeus there, now check out, doesn't he bear a close resemblance to U2's The Edge? Look at that, amazing. And then now, there's more. Check out Jesus there. Well, if you look at certain pictures of, well, Tom Petty on the internet, you find, look at that. Merge them together and voila. That is amazing. That is amazing. I had no idea they were so old. There's a lot of charges against progressives that it's the easy way. I promise you, it is the difficult way to live. Having compassion for your enemies, having love for anyone that walks in front of you, whether it's the store clerk or the person that's putting gas in your car, if you find one of those kinds of gas stations, by the way, or whether it's the person that says something to you unkind, that is not an easy way to live. But it can open up windows eventually that take you to some glorious places. And I'm positive of this. So for me, it's my own passion. By the way, I was noticing one of our chat community was voicing skepticism about the cup that I used during the open, thinking that I used too many motions, that it's gonna it would spill if there's actually anything in it. But we actually do have a real barista bar here, and let me see if I can prove it to you. All right. Well.
Right.
Yay. Good evening. I'm Chris Alexander, and I'm your host for Darkwood Brew tonight, and I'm assisted by Scott Frederickson. He's here to help me out again today. How are you?
I'm doing great. How about you, honey?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be obsessed, I think, throughout the whole rest of the show now, figuring out a way to get Eric back for calling me a cheat in the opening.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly what that means, but we'll get to that another time. We're very excited tonight to start the whole cheating series, and Bruce Van Blair, who's written a wonderful sermon on the Samaritan woman at the well, is going to join us and share his views with us about what is all this about for salvation issues about relationships, issues about expectations, about meeting strangers, all kinds of things that we're trying to get at in looking at these characters in this series just a little bit off from what they normally look like, so we get a chance to open up some space and think about what else they might be showing us than what we learned in Sunday school.
Yeah, it is true. I'm always excited to be here with Bruce because I'm sure that there will be something that I will go, wow, he actually said that.
Yeah.
So that's great.
I don't know if we need earplugs, though. That was a little...
Yeah, I've never, not really.
Might be, though. That could be fun.
Well, we had children, so we're used to it.
Well, we had a social media week, a little bit.
We did. This is summertime, and it's transition time, and people, the internet, I heard it was closed the other day, actually, and then I found out it was an internet cafe that was closed and whatnot. I couldn't.
That would explain our predicament.
Yeah. So so social media-wise, we didn't score huge, but nonetheless, as part of our transition, we did. We always have good blogs.
But not real good answers to our question.
Yeah. So we're just sitting here and we're thinking to ourselves, how are we going to be able to do this? So I'll tell you a story. So we're in Des Moines a few weeks ago, and we're walking through this church, and I'm walking with Chris, and this woman comes up to Chris and she says, aren't you the woman on the brew thing?
I'm famous.
And she's like, I don't have a pen for an autograph. No, I'm sorry. So anyhow, but I got to thinking about that it is only because of the hard work of the volunteers that go into making Darkwood Brew a ministry that is out there every week at 5 o'clock that is so important, so that people like Chris Alexander, Reverend Elmas, can be able to bring the love of God through this ministry. And so we have one of our people who has been with us from the very beginning on this is going to college.
Going away.
And she's going to the big city of New York, and she's one of our camera people. So is it possible? Amy, can you get Mary to come up here? Come here, Mary.
Come here, Mary.
Chris has got a seat for you. Here she is. Mary Kerrigan.
Have a seat.
I'm not camera ready.
I'm not camera ready.
She's not camera ready.
Bob, don't look anymore to that. But anyhow, we want to just thank you for all the time and effort, and of course, the times that I'm here. It's always been a joy to be able to have you be part of the Darkwood Brew community.
Thank you guys. It's awesome this experience.
So wave into the camera so that all your people.
I forgot you wouldn't have a mic.
Now, I understand you're going to Tisch. I know it's a communication school, but tell me a little bit about what you're going to be doing there.
I am going to be.
I'm
going to be doing like film and television. I'm not really sure what I want to specialize in yet.
Go.
Hello. I'm going to take like as many classes as I can, but they'll all be film and television related. I don't know if I want to be an editor, director, set crew, like different things like that, but I'm going to just take a bunch of classes and see what I want to do.
So like when you come back next summer, you'll be able to tell us all the stuff we do wrong.
We're
now
I'll probably find out that I was doing it all wrong.
Well, no. This is top flight. We are top flight. I mean, look at that band. I mean, it's just you. So
it's legit. This Darkwood Brew is pretty legit. Like this is real. This is a real deal.
Mary Kerrigan got her start.
Yeah.
Right here.
She's going to be famous one day, and we get to say that. So that's really excellent.
Now, last summer though, you were in New York City, right?
Yes, I did a 5-week film program through the school. It's kind of like a high school, like learn how to work a camera type thing.
Excellent.
So yeah, it was good.
Did you ever meet any people on the streets? Any street people? Any strangers? Anybody who scared you?
Yes, the subways. I met some interesting people who didn't have good control of their social skills.
Yeah, so you met my family. Okay, good. Not your family, mine.
I met some pretty interesting people, and I'll hopefully meet some more.
Yes, I'm sure you will.
Yeah,
I'm sure you will.
I'm excited.
Yeah, well, it's a great story tonight about Jesus meeting somebody on a subway type thing. Yeah.
Good. Well, there we
So you
go.
may take it from that. Well, we wish you the best, Mary.
All right,
Thanks for
thank
coming
you.
up here. Thanks
Yay,
again for all
thanks,
your hard
Mary.
work over the last couple of years.
And we have a little bit of music for the band, and then we've got a video for you that it tells the first half of the story of the woman at the well here. The whole story runs about 42 verses long, and it's a little bit long to do a pneuma poll, so we wanted to do a creative way of telling the first half of the story, and then we'll be right back to after that video to talk to Bruce Van Blair about the sassiness of the woman at the well.
I am a woman of no distinction, of little importance. I am a woman of no reputation save that which is bad. You whisper as I pass by and cast judgmental glances, though you don't really take the time to look at me or even get to know me. For to be known is to be loved, and to be loved is to be known, and otherwise what's the point in doing either one of them in the first place? I want to be known. I want someone to look at my face and not just see 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, and 2 ears, but to see all that I am and could be, all my hopes, loves, and fears. But that's too much to hope for, to wish for, or pray for, so I don't, not anymore. Now I keep to myself, and by that I mean the pain that keeps me in my own private jail, the pain that's brought me here at midday to this well. To ask for a drink is no big request, but to ask it of me, a woman unclean, ashamed, used and abused, an outcast, a failure, a disappointment, a sinner. No drink passing from these hands to your lips could ever be refreshing, only condemning, as I'm sure you condemn me now, but you don't. You're a man of no distinction, though of the utmost importance, a man with little reputation, at least so far. You whisper and tell me to my face what all those glances have been about, and you take the time to really look at me, but don't need to get to know me, for to be known is to be loved, and to be loved is to be known. And you know me. You actually know me. All of me and everything about me. Every thought inside and hair on top of my head. Every hurt stored up. Every hope. Every dread. My past and my future. All I am and could be. You tell me everything. You tell me about me. And that which is spoken by another would bring hate and condemnation. Coming from you brings love, grace, mercy, hope, and salvation. I've heard of one to come who would save a wretch like me, and here in my presence you say, I am he. To be known is to be loved, and to be loved is to be known. And I just met you, but I love you. I don't know you, but I want to get to. Let me run back to town. This is way too much for just me. There are others, brothers, sisters, lovers, haters, the good and the bad, sinners and saints, who should hear what you've told me, who should see what you've shown me, who should taste what you gave me, who should feel how you forgave me. For to be known is to be loved, and to be loved is to be known. And they all need this too. We all do need it for our own.
The woman at the well.
Yeah.
A whole new character that you think you might have known something about on Sunday school or sermons in the past or whatever. And Bruce is here to give us some ideas about what might be a little bit different about this woman than we had originally thought? What might we be thinking about who she is and how she relates to Jesus? And what that means for our own relationships. So Bruce, we'd love to have you here. Love to have you talk to us about who this woman at the well is. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine. How are you, Chris?
I'm
Hello,
doing
Scott.
great.
Hi, Bruce.
What's your first impression of the woman at the well?
Well, I think the first hint we get from the scripture, as was mentioned in the clip, was that she comes at noon. And no respectable woman would be there at noon. She would be there early in the morning, late in the evening, or both, but she wouldn't come at noon, so that's a hint. Mm. So you wonder right away, you know, what does she think when she finds a Jewish man at the well? She wasn't figuring on, and Jesus already knows quite a bit just because she's come at noon with water jars.
So there are some expectations and some kind of stereotypical ideas about who these people might be. They're not really strangers because they're carrying all this whole idea and background behind as they meet these people. It's not a blank slate.
Yeah. And then the shock is Jesus asks for a drink. I mean, because Jews and Samaritans don't have anything to do with each other. And far bigger than that, he is apparently willing to drink from her utensil, from her cup or her jar or whatever. And that would be breaking kosher law. So she's saying, this guy is no true Jew. He's no son of the commandments. He's willing, because he's thirsty and it's hot, to break all his codes.
So what is the whole relationship between the Jews and Samaritan? What's going on there?
Well, I think the next thing, you know, that occurs to me, and I don't need to sell it to anybody, but I think she thinks he's trying to pick her up.
I think that's pretty true.
Yeah, I mean,
I meant politically, but this works too.
Most women think they know what most men want. And of course they're wrong, except for about 80% of the time.
I think the percentage is even higher, Bruce. I know you're trying to be nice here, but let's...
And she knows how to respond to that, right? I mean, she's a woman who's been through this a lot. She knows how to respond. Yes. She thinks she's got Jesus all figured out and knows what to do, right?
Yes. And she's in control, and she's very, very smart and very fast. And so they get into this banter situation for a little while. And I think they're both enjoying it. And Jesus likes, I think, the fact that she is so on her toes and so fast. So the banter starts to unfold, and then, you know, he's asked for a drink, and then he says, you know, well, if you knew who I was, I could give you living water. Well, most men brag when they're trying to pick up a woman, at least in the beginning, and so what does living water mean? Well, I mean, she hasn't been to Sunday school. She doesn't know all this stuff's holy. She just hears the banter line and is right there. It's just so fast.
That was before what's your sign, huh?
Yeah.
What's what?
I said that line came before what's your sign? I can give you living water.
Yeah, sure. I suspect so. Yes, indeed.
Sorry, I threw him off.
No, that's okay. You know, one of the, you talked about a hint early on there. Are you suggesting, Bruce, that there's something that's just strange about this story from the get-go? Not only in where it's at, but the conversation, the people who are involved. Just that there's just a strangeness that we shouldn't expect this or something.
Well, no, not normally. There would be no expectation that a Jew would have anything to do with the Samaritan woman. So she knows she's on to somebody who's either a hypocrite with his own religion, or somebody unlike anybody she ever ran into before.
Okay.
And now she's wondering, where's he going with this? But you know, she's actually willing. So she says, "Okay, give me this water."
Okay.
And then Jesus, I think, realizes it's time to stop the banter, and says, "Okay, call your husband." I mean, this conversation is going to sound very different if the husband is present.
Right. Right.
Or she doesn't have one, and we assume Jesus realized that.
Right.
So then we get serious, and I mean, I don't want the banter or the sexual innuendo to kill the rest of a great story, you know, or get us off track. But nevertheless, I think it's fun, and I think they're having fun for a little while.
Right. So it's not necessarily, at least as I'm listening to you, it's not necessarily a threatening. Is it threatening? Let me ask it this way: Is it a threatening situation for either Jesus or the woman, or is it more that it's so out of what they were expecting that they don't even know what to do? Really, there's no rules for this. There's no social conventions.
It's not threatening. I think it's interesting.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. No threat.
Okay, so she's not feeling threatened. He's not feeling threatened. It's just more of two people who just find themselves in
Intriguing.
this. Yeah, and they're interested in each other. As you said, I think that sexual innuendo piece is important because that keeps the interest in the conversation, so they're not just kind of passing by each other just passing in the area. So.
Well, this woman's not threatened by sexual encounter. I mean, she's willing to go with it, right? Yeah, if she would have stopped this conversation long since if she had been, quote, a straight woman.
Right. Excellent. So when
she's saying, "Give me this living water," she would not do that in the banter even if she wasn't okay to go with it.
Okay.
Tell me about this living water. What's Jesus promising here with this living water? Why is what's it difficult for her to understand on this living water? What is the living water we're talking about?
Well, she misunderstands him, and he knows that. But the living water, is probably, intercourse.
Oh,
in her mind.
Well, that took me a whole different direction from where I thought I was going.
Well, that's what the sexual banter is implying.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Until he straightens it out, eventually, and gets it back on track.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden he brings up her husband, right?
Yeah, and he says, "But you have no husband, and the guy you're living with now is not your husband." And then she says, "Uh-oh, who would I walk into?"
Right now, in that situation there now, how does that change? You think the relationship that the woman is as she's experiencing Jesus, when Jesus confronts her and says to her, "All right, now I know that the guy you're with is not your husband. In fact, you've had a few of these husbands over time. Now, is this the part where she, in the relationship, now she pulls back and says, I need to run away, I need to disengage, I need to get my water and get out of here type thing? Or what does that seem to be saying to you?
Actually, that's when I get huge regard for this woman. I mean, she doesn't run away.
Okay.
And in fact, even though she's kind of an outcast or she wouldn't be there at noon, she's willing to forget all that, go tell the townspeople who she ran into, and suggest maybe this is the Messiah. Come and see.
Oh, yeah.
She's one of the great evangelists of the whole New Testament, right?
Right. And it happens in this very strange way of two people who find themselves in this kind of, as you said, strange encounter. And they're willing to go with it to a point, but then in the process of their conversation, the world actually opens up to her in a way that she really didn't expect it. I mean, if she didn't expect to be talking to a Jewish guy at noon, she certainly didn't expect to meet a Messiah. Is that kind of where you're talking about?
I think so. And then it really does, because she keeps bringing up the reasons for the animosity between Jew and Samaritan. And then I think, she never, ever expected to hear a Jew say, the time's coming when neither on this mountain, Gerizim, or in Jerusalem will you worship, right?
Yeah.
And then she said, whoa, who am I talking to? Right. So then when Jesus says, I am he, I am the Messiah, then she's willing to go with it. She said, who else could it be?
Right.
He knows who I am. He's not, I'm really blown away by the fact that a Samaritan woman assumes Messiah will come for Samaritans too.
That is surprising.
Yeah. And not necessarily be a Samaritan Messiah. I mean, that.
No.
I mean, that, it's one thing to think that a Samaritan, and our Messiah is going to come for everybody because we're trying to be generous, but that our Messiah might not come from us is really kind of tough because I'm a Minnesota Viking fan, and I'm pretty sure they're going to win a Super Bowl, someday. Green Bay may be in, maybe out. Sorry, Bob.
No, that's a really good point. I mean, if she wasn't even looking for it, how would she even start to recognize it if he hadn't, given her clues that he was going to stay with the conversation in a way that changed where her metaphor was and what her thinking was all about, and all of a sudden it dawns on her that this is something completely unexpected.
Yeah.
And she's so fast to pick it up.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
That is amazing. Yeah.
Well, I think that's amazing.
I think it's astounding, actually. That's beyond amazing.
Bruce, we appreciate your conversation on this. It's a good start to a conversation, kind of picturing the setting of this woman and Jesus at the well here. The next part of this text is going to get a little bit more political because it expands just from a conversation with the woman and Jesus at the well as she goes out and tells her community, and Jesus has to turn around and answer to the disciples about why he's talking to a Samaritan woman. So as we come back, we'll learn how this, change of expansion of metaphors, this whole idea about the relationships we have with one another and the unexpected Messiah and how that works, expands then out to a community discussion. Mm-hmm. So you'll be back with us to talk about that?
I presume.
Yeah, I hope so. One of the things
we'll look forward to it.
I think will help is if we get a chance to start reading from the text itself. We've already given you a good introduction of what this story is all about, and we're going to start with verse 31 in this story. It goes 1 through 42, and for our Pneuma, we're going to concentrate on verses 31 through 42. It'll give you 10 verses to kind of look through, think about it. We're using an ancient practice called Lectio Divina. It gives us a chance to read through the text a couple times, giving you the chance to sit with it for a while. Think about it. Have the idea of what verse gives energy for you, opens your imagination and has you thinking about something. There must be a word or a phrase within these 10 verses that gives some kind of life to your imagination. So we're asking you to be listening for that verse and that phrase as you listen to Tracy read the text through and the band playing behind her. And then we'll go to a music feature and give you plenty of time to think about it. And go online on the poll. If you're on the chat, there is a place that says vote here. Isn't that right? And it's in blue underlined. If you push that, the verses will come up and you get to pick which verse brings the most energy for you. For you, those of you in the room, our Pneuma Divina sheets like this have a square on the back, and you get a chance to read through with Tracy and write down the verse that brings most energy for you. So let's take a look at this verse. This is John 4, 31 through 42.
Meanwhile, the disciples were urging him, "Rabbi, eat something." But he said to them, "I have food to eat that you do not know about." So the disciples said to one another, "Surely no one has brought him something to eat." Jesus said to them, "My food is to do the will of him who sent me and to complete his work. Do you not say, 4 months more, then comes the harvest? But I tell you, look around you and see how the fields are ripe for harvesting." The reaper is already receiving wages and is gathering fruit for eternal life, so that sower and reaper may rejoice together. For here the saying holds true, one sows and another reaps. I sent you to reap that for which you did not labor. Others have labored, and you have entered into their labor. Many Samaritans from that city believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me everything I have ever done. So when the Samaritans came to him, they asked him to stay with them. And he stayed there 2 days. And many more believed because of his word. They said to the woman, "It is no longer because of what you said that we believe, for we have heard for ourselves, and we know that this is truly the Savior of the world."
So think of that phrase that stuck out for you in that reading, that phrase or that word, and hold it with you for a bit as we go through our music feature tonight, and then we'll come back directly from that and ask you to, we'll get Morris up here and we'll do results of the poll, and we'll ask the folks in the room. So come back with us after the music feature. Steve, you want to introduce what our feature is going to be tonight?
Hey, you bet. Joining Carlos Figueroa and myself are Jorge Nila on saxophone, and thank you, Ron, for coming in at the last minute.
Right.
And we had a little snafu, but Ron came in and, was great. So thank you. We're going to do a Chuck Moronic tune called Time Essence, and there you go. Enjoy.
Well, Morris, how's the internet? Results from our poll?
Feverish voting on the internet.
Feverish.
And if
Nice.
my refresh has been the most recent, it's verse 34. Verse 34. Jesus said to them, "My food is to do the will of him who sent me and to complete his work."
Okay.
All righty, that's the internet version. How about for those of you in-house? 34, there's lots of those. 42,
34,
34, 34.
34.
I still need
and
my little
42.
hat.
Yeah. 42,
37.
37, 37.
37.
37.
Well, it looks like 34 did catch the energy even in the room, even though there's a little bit more diversity here. But I think that's what we're working with, this whole idea that Jesus said to them, "My food is to do the will of him who sent me and to complete his work." So we're talking about Jesus' whole ministry, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
What is the food?
So we'll ask Bruce that.
What
We'll
is
invite
the
Bruce
water?
back and give him a chance
What is the sustenance?
to address this verse that's come up now as the energy in the room and online. And for those of you who are online, if you have a direct question that you'd like to ask Bruce, we're accumulating those now so that in the second conversation with Bruce online, you'll get a chance to ask him a question. So start thinking what that might be. And Morris here will help translate that to Bruce. So, Bruce, what do you think? Verse 34. I can't hear you. Try that again.
Oh.
It's maybe the sound in the room. Can we turn that up, guys? All right. Bruce, hang on a minute. You look really good, though.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
Our video is great.
Our audio not so good right now.
Audio's not much. So, but.
You sing something for us, and eventually you'll come up.
Hello? Hello, hello? Hello? I can hear you. Can you hear me? Unplug my mic. You can't hear me?
Thank you for joining us again. Sorry about that. We had a little snafu.
Oh dear. I thought I was off the hook.
No. No, you're on the hook.
Thought you could go get lunch, right? You're coming from Washington, right? So
Yes, indeed.
What time is it out there?
Well, it's
Lunchtime?
3:45.
Ah,
Quarter of
okay.
four. Yeah.
Working.
Okay.
Well, it's too early to leave now. You got to
I
stay
know.
and talk to us. How about
Okay,
that verse
Jesus-
34?
Yeah, what is the will of the Father? I mean, I would never be able to make a statement like that, unless I lost all my humility. But Jesus, right?
Yeah, we
So
are
what is
talking
he
about
doing?
Jesus.
I mean, we don't want to lose sight of the really big story, which is, as we would normally expect, he's breaking covenant from perspectives that anybody there would have thought about, and he's trying to bridge the gap between Jew and Samaritan. And we know that Jesus was trying to pick it up, and now he's done it. He's got a strong center of what we might call Christian Samaritans in the heartland of Samaria, which is near Jacob's well, Shechem, Nablus, whatever you want to call it. And who could have pulled that off? So that's amazing. And he's broken past the barriers that divide us one more time. So why did the Jews and the Samaritans hate each other? Well, I wish we could get into it a little bit more, but in really, really fast brief, when the northern kingdom was destroyed by Assyria, they took 27,000 of the useful Jews up to Assyria, and left the dregs of what was left of the northern kingdom there in the Samaritan area. But then Sargon was smarter than that. He also is kind of a Botany Bay deal. He shipped down all the dregs of the Assyrian society that he didn't want and put them in the northern kingdom that he conquered, but he didn't have anything else to do with it. So what we have is, of the Samaritans are half-breeds. They have intermingled between the dregs of Assyria, the dregs of Jewish society, and so they're unclean from the Jewish perspective. And then when, under Ezra and Nehemiah, years later, they came back from their Babylonian captivity, not Assyrian captivity, the Samaritans said, hey, we've been here, and, we have been faithful to the law and the covenant, and we'd like to join you and help you build the temple now. And Ezra and Nehemiah said, hey, we got kicked out of here because we wouldn't keep the covenant. Now we're coming back. We're going to intermingle with all you half-breeds? Are you crazy? And they wouldn't allow them, to participate in the rebuilding of Jerusalem and the temple and the society. So obviously the animosity is huge.
Yeah. You wonder why there was a feud, huh?
Yeah. And it was
that would be my response too. If that, I would start a feud.
Yeah.
The animosity would be huge.
Yeah, exactly.
Situation.
So Jesus is saying, hey, we got to get the gringos back in here.
Yeah. So he's breaking down barriers all over.
Absolutely. Huge.
Not only in the traditions of the temple, as well as the political ramifications of all that are huge.
And not siding with Ezra and Nehemiah, who have huge reputation and their understanding of the covenant, but a new covenant, as we have sometimes said, that's going to, put us back together. So, we know that Jesus, his Good Samaritan story, the 10th leper that came back to thank him, and now this woman at the well. So, yeah, to me, that's hugely exciting.
So this verse 34, where it says, my food is to do the will of him who sent me and to complete his work. When we're talking about the will of God, we're talking about building those bridges and breaking down those walls in order to open up new relationships, new ideas of how we can relate to one another as a community as well as individuals.
Yeah, new community, absolutely.
Right. So we have a broader perspective of how now Jesus has to justify his conversation with this woman at the well to his disciples. They come to him and say, what are you doing?
Yeah, but he's broken way past them. They're, of course, stuck in the old models and the old ways of thinking, and so both by example and by look how he uses this woman. And not uses, but uses in the best sense of the word. He values her. He thinks she's, got all kinds of potential, and she's the one that breaks it open for him.
Mm-hmm. So how do you justify that to a community who thinks that you're already blaspheming things?
We what? I missed it.
How do you justify that relationship with the woman at the well to the disciples who wonder why he's breaking all the rules?
It wouldn't cross my mind to try to justify Jesus. What do you do?
No, how does Jesus go back and say to them, that holding the rules and the covenant of the Jewish tradition is not what this is about. This is about healing and relationships and wholeness. And how well do they take that?
He's already told they have no choice, right? They're either going to abandon him, which some do, or they're going to go with him and follow him like we're supposed to. But he's already said, my food is to do the will of him who sent me. So how are they going to argue with that?
That's true.
They can, but
hard to argue with Jesus on that one.
Yeah, Bruce, as you're talking, I'm thinking about something. I'm interested to see where you're at. If I heard you right, and I'm with you on this, I'm pretty sure here, what you actually are calling us is that Jesus is actually trying to bring together what's been separated, right? Or bring everybody back into a more fuller understanding of the Jewish tradition, the community at large, even the world itself, I suppose, at some level. So when he's talking about the reaping and the sowing, what he's trying to get people to see is there is this huge, let's say, field or pasture that is out there, and to only look at one little corner of it is to just miss the sheer grandeur of what God is about in all the rest of the pasture. Is that something about what you're thinking? Is that where you're leading it?
Absolutely. The way you put it, that's right. This cup is the new covenant in my blood. We've never figured it out, have we?
Yeah.
Except in little tiny pieces. And it's so big we can't fathom it.
Yeah. And so Jesus is actually out there then trying to get us to kind of open up and to see that the work of God in this sense is not just for a few people who happen to be born at the right time in the right place, or a few people who happen to understand the Scripture one way or another way, but instead rather it's about God coming out and bringing this whole world, and that Jesus is part of that process of helping us see that literally we're all in this together in that sense.
Right.
Okay, okay.
And even in this story, it's not just Jesus who's helping us to see that. He's taking advantage of conversations with folks all around in order to give it a lived example.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so come with me or kill me, and either way, I'm probably going to pick you up in the end.
Yeah. And I love, and I just love this particular story, as you've pointed out now all evening here. It's just so strange that this great message of God just out there for the whole world, this love that is there for the world, is encapsulated in this strange conversation between a Jewish man and a Samaritan woman in the middle of the day in the middle of the desert. And there's just a strangeness to it that just almost belies our believability in it. It's like, you got to be kidding me. You know?
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So one of the things you said in your sermon on this piece was that Jesus never leaves someone the same as he found them. The transformation transformation of the woman, the transformation of Jesus by being intrigued and being in wonder of this woman who's able to hold her own. The disciples who are trying to figure out what he's up to, what's going on. The Samaritans who are freaked out about the possibility of a Messiah actually coming to the Samaritans as well. Jesus has transformed all kinds of political, socioeconomic, traditional, religion, all that kind of stuff in one fell swoop.
Yep.
Yeah, he hit it all. He hit it all. I love that.
You want to expand on that? Yep, that's all happened.
You know, it did. I mean, I think that's sort of the beauty of this story. I mean, if you look at the very last verse, and there were some people that had pointed to verse 42, and if you look at that, they said to the woman, "It's no longer because of what you said that we believe." And you think about that right now. I mean, we've talked about this story as a woman who's on the outcast of a society, but yet the people within her community believed in her at some level. So there was already a trust from that woman, even though she was on the outside of that community, that when she brought Jesus, another stranger, into town, they didn't kick them both out. And then, but they made that transformation, because not only did Jesus have turn the woman at the well into something different, but then he went and changed the whole town, literally in this particular case, where they said, "Hey, we actually heard it ourselves. We didn't think there was a Jewish guy who could come and understand that we're part of what." Yeah, exactly. Reach us. That could actually understand that we feel part of this great call as Jewish people, and we are the outcasts, and you won't let us in. We've been banging at the door asking for a crust of bread just to be recognized as siblings or something. And here's finally some recognition for them. And they all seem, not only this woman but the whole town by the end of the story, to say, "Wow, I think we've got something here. We might have seen the Savior of the world." That's great.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's the core of all true evangelism. It can't just stay with the messenger. It doesn't lock in until we hear it ourselves, until we come to encounter God for ourselves.
That's so true. So true.
And last week we were talking about the Zacchaeus story and how Jesus says, "Today salvation has come to this house." And throughout this series, we've been talking about the idea of salvation being something more than just something that happens at the end of a life as you're standing at the pearly gates, but it's here and it's now. And it's the healing of relationships, bringing brokenness into wholeness. And here we have thousands of relationships that are just overlapping each other and are just blooming and blossoming into something altogether different. And that, to me, is that salvation. Today, salvation has come to this point. Today, we know that this is truly the Savior of the world.
All right. Mm-hmm. Morris, what's been going on online?
Fierce discussion. Fierce.
Fierce. Nicely put, brother.
Struggling to keep up with it. Bruce, Scott, Chris, the online community has been discussing the strict confines of traditional sexual relationships, male-female, male-male, etc., accepted by traditional religion. Bruce, you've done a wonderful job explaining, elaborating on this passage, transcending or calling upon us to transcend these stereotypes in
Sure.
relationships. Question, can you elaborate on how this message has continued to be ill-received even by the disciples? This message of transcending barriers, religious barriers, Samaritan Jew, sexual barriers, male, female, a woman at a well at noon. How is it that this message continues or has been misinterpreted?
First of all, I don't think any of us are confused that that Jesus was breaking the ethical codes of Judaism or the covenant. He's not making love to this woman, but he still sees complete value in her, and sees beyond what most people would see when they look at her. But why is it so hard for it to get through to us? All I can answer is for myself. It's always blowing my mind, and it's always threatening me, because I think I already knew what was right and wrong, and all at once I don't.
Right. Yeah, that constant challenge, and I immediately went to a different place, Morris. I think for myself, it's almost a question of time. I mean, I often feel stressed and that I need to get something done and I need to do this. And I don't always have time for Jesus to stop and have me look at the bigger picture. I mean, that's just inconvenient.
How inconvenient.
It's an inconvenient truth, And I just can't do that. So it's sort of what Bruce is saying in that sense too, where then now that I've stopped, now I'm going to have to change, and I already thought I knew it, I mean, look at me. Obviously I know everything. It's just that push up against that larger truth, that larger vision, that little field when I've just mastered my own little 6 inches,
And I guess the question is, how do we keep the path on toward truth? How do we maintain that path toward these truths that we are discussing, that we are uncovering?
Yeah.
I'm a busy man. Who do you think you are? Just because you're the Son of God?
Yeah, I mean, the Son of God, yeah, I know. It's just popping up all the time.
So one of the things which you're highlighting again and again is we got to slow down. We're not going to save the world, but we know who is. So maybe we got to slow down, pay more attention.
Yeah, and maybe that's the way that we understand that path that you're talking about there. That path towards truth is not necessarily something that we have to accomplish as if there's an end, a rest stop at the end, but instead it's a constant journey. And to be able, in this sense, literally to kind of take that journey for value. I mean, the whole point, and Bruce pointed this out earlier, if Jesus had just kind of walked by, and we'd never have this story, but he's on this journey, he stops, he has this conversation, and the world has changed. And maybe what we don't often do is stop and have the conversations so the world can change. I mean, that could be a way to look at how we can keep that going.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
And what's Jesus going to do the day after?
Right.
He's still going to be, trying to do the will of his Father, isn't he?
Right. Yeah.
Well, Bruce, thank you so much for sharing your ideas about this woman at the well. It certainly has given me some new stuff to think about. And I hope that you all will take this conversation with you throughout the week. Dwell with it, sit with it for a while, ask Bruce questions online. However you want to continue the conversation, we'd be glad to help continue that. And Bruce will say goodbye to you now, and we'll go for a little bit of music and come back with a video that we've seen before, but I think is hysterical and exactly great for this show. So we're going to use it again. So a little bit of music. Thank you very much, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you both.
Bye.
On the other side, leaving the man helpless. But then, who should wander by but a Samaritan of all people? And he actually helped the man.
Hang on, Master.
No, he did. He went over and actually...
No, sorry.
No. I mean, this is what I'm saying. That a Samaritan, all right, so have a good think about your attitudes, went and helped.
Yeah, no, I see.
No, stick with it. Because what I'm saying is that he was a good Samaritan. That's good Samaritan, if you can imagine such a thing.
Yes, I can. I think we all can.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of prejudice against Samaritans, which is terrible. But I'm sure I speak for everyone in this room when I say that there are loads of really nice Samaritans.
Yeah, some of my best friends are Samaritans.
Yeah, me and the wife went on holiday to Samaria last year, and they were lovely people.
Couldn't do enough for you.
Yeah, so what I'm finding offensive, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, is your unreflecting acceptance of this cliché that all Samaritans are wankers.
No, I'm saying he was good.
Yeah, but you're implying that the fact that he was good is worth a story in itself. It's some kind of weird curiosity, like an albino Nubian.
No, I'm saying that goodness comes in unexpected places.
Yeah, and I'm saying that the fact that you wouldn't expect goodness from a Samaritan betrays your inherent racism.
Okay, all right, that's a big word. Let's just take a deep breath here. I didn't mean to offend anybody, that's the last thing I intended. I didn't realise there were any Samaritans in the room.
No, that's not the point.
Or Samaritan sympathisers, you know, Sammy lovers.
Oh, I can't believe I'm hearing this.
No. I didn't realise it was such a PC environment here, and I suppose I thought that having what was only intended as a fond pop at our Samaritan neighbours, friends even, if you like, would not be inappropriate in the context of a story which is, after all, about goodness. And at the end of the day, it is only a parable.
What, it didn't really happen?
Well, of course not. A Samaritan tosser wouldn't do that for his own grandmother.
Jesus Christ!
Well, Jesus is breaking down barriers all over the place, and our expectations are getting changed all over the place. One of the best places that Jesus breaks down those walls and shows us a whole new way of being in the world is through the Last Supper, what we call communion in the Christian community, but happened thousands of years before with Melchizedek and Abraham. But this is a giving of Jesus in a new way, where he says, "This is my body broken for you. Do this for the remembrance of me." And again after supper, he takes the cup and he says, "This cup is a new covenant in my blood, a whole new way of thinking about life. This is for you and for all people, so that all may come to know God's love, so that new relationships could be healed, so that wholeness could be brought to everyone, Samaritans, Jews, Gentiles, male, females, everyone." This is a promise from Jesus to us. These are the gifts of God for the people of God. For those of you who are sharing with us in communion, I hope that you'll grab something there, whatever you might have, bread or wine, juice, crackers, whatever you may have. Share with us in this wonderful meal of breaking of the bread with Jesus and with our community. Building bridges for breaking down walls. thank you for joining us today as we get a good look at how maybe our ideas and our stereotypes of even characters within the Bible have come with us into our traditions. And getting a chance to shift those and look at things in a new way is always a great treat. And we thank Bruce Van Blair for being with us to help us see that in a new light. Next week, we have Steve Knight, who is a curator of the progressive blogs on Pathos, is going to be with us as our Skype guest. We're very excited to have him with us. And we are on the last of our series for hookers, looters, and cheats. And we'll be working with cheating priests, lawyers who Jesus loved. I think Eric's in there somewhere. Oh!
All right, it's back.
I knew I'd get him back for that one. Until then, my friends, may the Spirit of the living God, known to us most fully through Jesus Christ our Lord, go before you to show you the way, go above you to watch over you, to go behind you to push you into places where you would not normally go on your own, go beneath you to uphold you and to uplift you, to walk beside you to be your constant and strong companion, and to dwell inside you so that you know you are not alone, but loved beyond your wildest imagination. And may the fire of God's blessing burn brightly upon you and within you, now and forever.
Thank you.